Okay, this is like the fourth time recording this. I've been in a bit of like a busy patch lately, so this is probably going to be a lot shorter than I planned. I'm gonna go pretty off of my script and try and do like a minimal editing to this. So if this sounds like shit and the audio is too slow or there's too many like random noises, I'm sorry in advance. This is just gonna be a rough video this time. Um, so overall, pretty good chapter. It was nice getting like a big exposition down that kind of it tied up a lot of loose ends in terms of like analysis stuff. Like I definitely understand where this arc is heading now a lot better, and I'm pretty interested to see where it goes. Um, I think this is probably going to be like the last or second to last chapter or like big exposition chapter before the main plot really starts to kick off. It'll probably kick off by like the end of the volume. We got enough to really know like the main conflict and like why each side is doing what they're trying to do. And also we got a lot of like ominous seeds that got planted, and hopefully we will see soon what that actually entails. Um, a very quick refresher on like my understanding of like the themes and stuff. I'm not gonna go in as much detail this time. I'll have a link to the Google Doc that has a lot more information in it down in the description. But overall, the gist is the two main themes for this arc are going to be Gutsu, which is the third level of value, which is like crystallization and, taking all of the accumulation that Rico has gained and forming it into like one solidified singular goal that she's going to, pursue without hesitation and unflinchingly. And the second theme is bringing back value and souls from the last arc. Although this time it's a lot more focused on souls than it is value, but they're still pretty interconnected. Um, Basic stuff about like new information. I kind of want to speed through this because y'all have read the chapter. This isn't really why you click on my videos, is for me to dryly go through what we learn. But like the basic stuff about the Juso, seems like I was right. They're pretty similar to the Omen from Elden Ring of being like curse-born and, not really liked by people and generally killed. I was right that they were also like a fifth form of Narahate. I'm interested to see what like the specifics of that are. Since each of them kind of have their own weird little niche things. And I'm also obviously curious about like how all of these Juso ended up in Hail Hex. Um, and yeah, then Mania being like a pseudo Juso kind of brings up the question of like who is able to use the release. We know that like Abads and Juso can, but can like all Narahate? Is it just like anything touched by the abyss can use it, or anything whose body is created by the abyss can use it, or only things born within the abyss? I don't know. We'll see. But it does bring up a lot of questions about like the other members of Team Rico and if they can actually use this or not. We also got introduced to Hail Hex and got a little more information on each of the characters there. It's interesting to see how many combatants there are in this arc. This definitely seems like it's going to be a lot more fighting focused of an arc than the last one, which will be a cool change of pace. I don't mind seeing a lot more fights. Um, we also learn the goal of Hail Hex, or at least like Sarajo's goal, which is, getting to the bottom of the abyss. there's probably going to be a lot more to it than that. I don't think Sraja would be the person who, or like the kind of person who just wants to go down there out of pure curiosity. I feel like there might be something more going on. Um, Namely because if, the next three white whistles all have the same goal, that would be a bit eh. Uh but we do know that she needs to get through the shrine mating to do that, and we get some more information about, shrine maiden Haryomari stuff. Something interesting I also noticed, like while I was writing the script from talking to someone, was like on Wiktionary, the definition of Miko, or like shrine maiden or priestess, is like an unmarried woman who serves as a medium to convey oracles, which is what Wiktionary says. Which is pretty much one for one with the description that Rico gave. Um, I know some people were thinking like, oh, is there going to be like an actual shrine or something that she's taking care of? But seeing as Miko is like not, it's not her actual title, it's just like a code name that gets used for her. Um, there's probably going to be a lot more. Like this is probably going to be a pretty surface level description of her, and we'll probably get a lot more later on. Um, my theory on the fairy tale that the Shrine Maiden is trying to see through, probably connected to, or like a catalyst for the 2,000 year cycle. Like that seems to be the big omen that the Shrine Maiden is trying to inform people of, and maybe trying to see through in a sense, especially since, like, the cycle has been brought back again recently, and a ton of characters from higher up layers have been, wrote back into the story. But we'll see. This also introduces like a pretty interesting like holy versus taboo kind of element, with like the shrine maiden on one side and Hail Hex on the other. Um, we get some basic information about Layer 7, not really all that much. We see some sort of entrance to it, some sort of weird flesh wall, and, we get the implication that there's more going on to the Layer 7 curse than just certain death, which, surprise, surprise, I think most people kind of knew that beforehand. Like, Layer 6 and 7 are kind of like the weird, interesting parts of Made in Abyss. And seeing how complex and thematically rich the Layer 6 curse was, it makes sense that the Layer 7 curse is going to follow in that suit. Um, some people have said that it might be like what happened to Shirumi and Mine. I don't think so. Like, immobilization has already been a threat of higher up layers, and if that was the only thing that the Layer 7 curse was, then it would be less of a threat than Layer 6. Um, and I've heard some people say it might be a complete erasure from history and memory. It's possible, but I also don't think that would be too much of a risk, I guess, compared to certain death, since, keeping your memory alive, or the memory of you alive, is like pretty low priority for a lot of white whistles, since usually they, especially the lower down white whistles, like level 3 and higher, and by that I mean like value levels, like Gutsu, Mei, and Haku. They have to be very focused on their goals to actually like spiritually be at that level. So focusing on something as unimportant as people remembering you, I doubt that would be the case. I feel like it's probably going to be something a little more existential, and existential to the characters themselves, but we'll see. Um, it's probably going to be pretty interesting, hopefully. We learn a bit about the Hariomari collection. Sorry. Oh, I'm going to need a water break. But yeah, we learn a bit more about that. Um, we we've been getting a lot more context around the song. Now we know actually what it is, and I think the biggest thing in this chapter is the taboos of the abyss that it's talking about. Um, because like basic layer 7 information we already knew, but there definitely seems to be a lot of things that will be very important to layer 7 specifically that we won't know until like probably the end of this arc. Um and then yeah, I'd say like the main interesting things from the Hariomari song are the parts that we heard Kurvali sing. Um which was, as he was climbing down at the end of side story 4. I would say like the main, like my initial main assumptions about it are the gentle voice, probably the shrine maiden calling for aid in order to like see through the Hariomari fairy tale. Um, and the golden petals make me think of, like the white petals of the eternal fortune flower. In my, I think it was like the Fapata video. Yeah. In my video on Fapata, I talked about like the importance of the color gold and how it seems to kind of be like a step above, or I guess step beyond, the value scale. Um, Something interesting that I also noticed with this kind of thing with like gold and it kind of being ascending beyond value is that the channel Fright Ranker has talked about this a couple times, but like the Buddhist hell connections to the abyss and how essentially people are going through the trials of hell to try and like strip themselves of desire, of value, of earthly connection. Um, and my interpretation is that gold is kind of a representation of ascension in a sense, in like that way. Um, and something else that he mentioned was that like sometimes people are reincarnated and have to go through those struggles again, and sometimes it's like each time they go through they become like a higher being until they finally ascend. I feel like that's essentially what's happening with like Fapata's story. Like she saw through the like fully completing the haku of like relating to her mother, um and now she's kind of adopted this like exploration and knowledge acquisition thing from Gabarun, and is kind of at like level 1 of that value journey, and the higher up she gets the more she's gonna ascend in a sense, and likely 3 times, 3 eggs, 3 haku. Eventually we'll get to her value cycle around reg. Interested to see what that's gonna hold, but yeah. um we get information on the girl type Abad, and heavy implication that she was dissected by Bondred for Sparagmos, which would make sense, both in terms of like Dark Reg's aggression as well as like why Sparagmos is so similar to the incinerator. Um, it is also kind of interesting that I heard some people say that like Nanachi or like, sorry, that the reason that Bondrewd initially tried to chop up Reg was that he might have thought that Nanachi was offering him another Abad for knowledge and parts, and just like completely misinterpreted the situation, which would follow his character pretty well and adds another interesting element, because I feel like that's the one area where he was the most like hard to read, I guess, but having an explanation on that fits his character pretty well is interesting. Uh, then we get Shirumi and Mine. They look very different. They don't have limbs. They look like dogs. Why are they alive now? It mostly just a lot of questions like why Ozen did what she did, why the twins are back, why they're limbless. Does this have to do with a coffin at all? Um, it I don't know. A lot of questions. Hopefully, we'll get answers soon. Uh, Miscellaneous stuff. Let's see. Is there anything interesting here? I think it's mostly just me pointing out like minor things that have happened. Like, cool design. I really like Srajo's vibe and design. It's really growing on me. I know a lot of people are disappointed that she didn't end up being the plague doctor, but I still stand by that. Oh gosh, what is his name? Yadara. I do think that he is most likely the plague doctor. I just hope we'll be able to see him in full uniform sometime. Um, that would also fit with all of the non-Srajo members of Hail Hex having gas masks. With his just being a plague doctor mask, since he doesn't have a normal one like the others do. Um, I'm pretty interested to figure out like what the thematic reason for that is. Like, um, already Sakushi is doing a really good job of setting up a lot of design motifs throughout all of Hail Hex. And looking at the other White Whistle squads, they all have really thematically rich um, squad designs. Not so much Ozen because she's like old, but especially with like the Umbra Hands being very robotic, very priestly, just really echoing a lot of the design motifs of Bondrewd and really strengthening those. I'm interested to see how Hail Hex will play into that as well. Um, Cause yeah, instead of like the priestly and robotic stuff, we got like very militaristic, animalistic, gas mask stuff. Uh, Interested to see how everything ties together. Now that I sped ran like what 3,000 words or something, um, you're gonna actually get into like the juicy analysis and theory things. Um, let's see. Yeah, I don't really have too much to say on the themes that I haven't already said either in the video in last episode or in the intro, because this mostly just confirmed a lot of my hypotheses more so. Um, and yeah, like going off some of that, we are currently in, I called it like a night arc, I think, last time. Um, Essentially, if this is going off of the theme, what we can expect is a lot more focus on characters, generally a lot darker of an atmosphere. Um, and I guess the main thing is uh, focusing on that main like value theme. This time is Gutsu. And essentially, Riko is going to have to go through some kind of trial to get her from Ku level 2 all the way to level 3 Gutsu. And whatever she does in order to do that will be like what lets her into what I call the gate, which is kind of, it's not really like its own arc like day and night arcs, but it's just kind of like a thing that needs to be passed. Like, for example, like, I guess the most obvious example, the altar of the absolute boundary. Like, in order to pass Bondru's quote unquote trial, not intentional trial, but still a trial, and to get her spiritually to Ku, it required that Rico kind of accept all of this accumulation coming her way from the wills of those around her. And that's kind of manifested with Prushka in her White Whistle form, which is essentially a physical key that will let Rico go further. And we'll essentially have that for this arc, but instead it's going to be focused on like crystallization. So essentially, if you've noticed in the last couple chapters, a couple times Rico has talked about her goals. They're very scattered, a lot of like things that she's very invested in, but things that have just kind of like piled up onto her, like figuring out what's going on with her mom and what's going on with the letter and seeing what's going on with the pivotal ring and finding out more about Reg, so on and so forth. All of this stuff, in order to ascend to Gutsu, she will need to embody the lesson of Gutsu, of crystallization, and kind of pack together everything into one singular focus goal. Like, compare Bondrewd, who constantly is flickering between new things, like trying to create a Juso, trying to become a Narahate, trying to eradicate a bunch of random insects. Like, he really goes all out with the things that he's interested in, but he has no focus compared to Srajo, who is singularly focused on her one goal and will do anything unflinchingly in order to get it. And we'll definitely see that a lot more as it goes on. But effectively, Rico is going to have to get to that similar kind of level. And, you know, in order to get past the gate, which is just the big flesh wall, very obvious, the gate there. It seems like the way to get past the gate will be getting information from the Shrine Maiden. Personally, now this is getting more into like the speculation of what I think is going to happen. I think Team Rico is going to have to fight Srajo. Like I said, this is probably going to be very action heavy. This might be like a big 3-way war, honestly. I think that generally, like, okay, sorry, hold on. I kind of lost my place in where I'm looking. There's a lot of fluff in this text. If anyone wants a more solidified, less all over the place explanation, I could probably post the script somewhere. It goes a lot more in depth than this video will. But yeah, essentially, Rico is going to have to be willing to do anything to see through her goal, which at this point is getting to the bottom of the abyss. I feel like that is the most likely goal that this crystallization is going to come up with. I think personally that Rico is going to have to betray Srajo and the entirety of Hail Hex, probably ending in all of them dying, in order to get the information from the Shrine Maiden, in order to actually get through the gate. effectively, this is just going to be either Srajo gets through or Rico gets through, and there will only be one. And by Rico being willing to effectively kill someone in order to do that, that would put her at that point of Gutsu, of being so singularly focused on her goal that she's willing to do anything. I don't think this is going to be like an Rico villain arc. It's more just going to be it's going to be reaching a new level of morally gray that I think a lot of people have been waiting for. But yeah, essentially we're going to see Rico homicide. I I don't think it's gonna be necessarily like in cold blood. Like the big thing that puts Rico apart from the other White Whistles is that she really holds onto her humanity and respects humanity regardless of her White Whistle status and what she needs to do. So what is probably gonna happen is either she is required to put Srajo and Hail Hex in a situation that gets them killed, or they're going to have to fight to the death for this kind of thing. Possibly might even have to betray like the Shrine Maiden and her followers as well. Because looking back to like Wazikyan's statement, it seems like, you know, as the cycles, cycles as in like what I used for the actually no, I'm calling them clusters. They're clusters of arcs. Effectively, this is what I was talking about in my first video, although that one is like super outdated, but whatever. Essentially for this cluster, the threat that's kind of ever present around like the side characters that get introduced is pretty much all of them will die, or at some level their wishes will be left unfulfilled. That's what happened last arc. In previous arcs, characters died but still had their wishes fulfilled, and before that people were just kind of sad, and that's about it. Once we get to layer 7, it'll probably be a lot more intense than even that. Not sure what it'll be, but I remember Wazikyan saying that beyond the Golden City, beyond layer 6, things are going to be a lot more, very messy, more podcasty thing than video, but hopefully this at least gives like some insight. Unfortunately, I've been like super all over the place in terms of like recording this, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I can probably clarify a lot easier than I was able to in this video. And yeah, again, I'll have some information linked in the description. But I hope y'all have a great rest of your day, week, month, whatever. And I will see you eventually next time whenever the next chapter comes out. Bye.